Review websites are important, especially to the consumer. They are neat little apparatuses that gauge the quality of any particular product you can think of. It is a desideratum to be aware of the general public satisfaction of any given product to measure whether or not said product will have sufficient enough utility for you as an individual. It's a beautiful thing. That's why it completely baffled everyone when YouTube decided they would Oppenheimer the dislike button for whatever reason. It was a great visual indicator for the individual user, allowing them to appropriately sift through all the damn pap that delay results for whatever the hell somebody was looking for in particular. Millions, and I mean
billions and billions
of people were all checking in and out of platforms like Rotten Tomatoes to see how big the Mario movie or Barbie would score, because those two are franchises deeply culturally entrenched within the fabric of society translated into movies. Any hotly anticipated entertainment product you can think of, you can bet there are people clamoring to decide if they were a W or a flop. It gets the people talking. It's the nature of the internet. Metacritic is basically the Def Comedy Jam for video games. What does that mean? Well, if you knew anything about Def Jam comedy, you would know that the audiences in that joint were raucous, almost immovable and ignorant. Not ignorant, no, ignorant. If you sauntered up to the mic as an up-and-coming joke teller and you bomb, they let you know. That's why if you rock them like the legendary Bernie Mac, for example, you basically became a living legend. As new games release and shock the world, it further proves that the standards of video games are in a perpetual state of evolution, which ultimately means that gamers will inevitably be tougher on, say, the sequel to a critically acclaimed game or a new IP created by a seasoned dev like Bethesda. Unfortunately, you're going to have actual retards in the space that become super, I don't know, weird or just straight up dishonest because of an ulterior agenda. These kinds of people are generally the worst ever because there's a common theme of stupid-ass elitism that emanates from their garbage-ass takes. This ilk of gamer have essentially distorted the concept of what makes a good review score in a video game. Metacritic is primarily the breeding ground for this sort of fuckhead-assery because it's the premier platform where a lot of people measure their confidence in a new game. Sadly, you have dudes out there who have established that any game under a 90 on Metacritic is either mediocre or a two-pack of ass. Let's use Final Fantasy 16 as an example. Square Enix game that dropped exclusively on PlayStation consoles. When everything was said and done, the game clocked in at an 88, I believe. Pretty good score, huh? Wrong. I saw with my own two eyes people legitimately saying that a score of 88 out of 100 meant it was hovering above flop territory. Now, I know what you guys are saying. What kind of crack are these people actually smoking? Is it mental illness? I want to know. And I could confidently say yes to both of those questions. This sort of thing happens to a litany of games where there's always a tremendous amount of pressure, at least for the highly anticipated games, for them to be above a 90 rating. As if games being in the 90s are the only ones worth playing, and anything under that is pure unadulterated garbaggio. Which is wild to me because most games, good ones, land within that 80 range. Gamers. Actually retarded. Starfield was one of the biggest releases this year for Xbox, and there was a huge hubbub about the fact that in a sea of 9s and 8s the game received from other review websites, IGN stepped in, whipped out the Magnum dog, and said, hold up, 7 out of 10. And as you expected, you had people go complete apeshit over the score as if it was bad, even though it's much closer to all the 8s and 9s it got. You had people straight up mauling and coming up with conspiracy theories as to how the score itself was the byproduct of some anti-Xbox agenda, even though the review gave a substantial and fair evaluation to all the things it does well and what it doesn't. It's far from a masterpiece, to be honest, based on what I played. A decent amount of review outlets that came after, like the initial reviews, pretty much echoed the same sentiments, therefore dropping the metascore down to an 83 because the score is based on scores of other review outlets, which is still a pretty good score. And it sounds about right to me. I've given Starfield a similar score to IGN. Basically, I'm feeling a strong 7 to light 8, and that's okay. Good games can be 7. It also can't be ignored that review bombing is a thing because no life cum guzzling vermin band together in a concerted effort to attempt to decrease the ratio of favorable reviews of games that belong to another camp, therefore delegitimizing the game in the eyes of the potential gamers who depend on Metacritic scores with their lives. What makes me laugh more than anything is when fanboys, PlayStation, and Xbox, and even Nintendo partake in this weird-ass dick measuring contest in which they compare Metacritic scores of games that come from their respective companies they simp for. This mostly happens with PlayStation and Xbox. My game got a better Metacritic score than yours.